SPORTS. We are talking Lionel Messi and Mauricio Pochettino, of course, with Philippe Auclair. Hi, Philippe.
Hello to you.
Great to have you with us. So the ups and the downs of managing a Ronaldo and a Lionel Messi.
Yes.
Oh gosh, much ado about nothing, I suspect, all this. But so talk to us. It's 1-1 PSG against Lyon. The clock is ticking on. 76 minutes on the clock, and
Correct,
Pochettino says, "You know what, Messi, you're off." And how, in your view, did Messi react?
Well, he wasn't too happy about it, that's for sure. His expression, both when he was taken off and also when we saw him on the bench afterwards, and you could be sure that, of course, the people who were conducting and producing the program made absolutely sure we could see how Messi was reacting to that. And believe me, obviously, a lot of the commentary was about the way that Messi was reacting to it. He wasn't too keen, basically, on being replaced. He obviously was flummoxed. Flabbergasted, all the rest of it, but we now know why he was substituted, and thanks to Mauricio Pochettino, who talked to the media before Paris Saint-Germain visit to Metz tomorrow evening in the French league, and apparently he had a knock on his left knee, and he will miss the game against Metz, and it's actually even possible that he might miss the game against Manchester City. So this is at least what is in the PSG statement. And this might actually make the tongues wag a little bit less in France, because you can imagine it's just insane. I mean, as soon as there's anything to do with Messi and PSG, everything is headlines, everything is, it's not overhyped, it's uber hyped. I don't know, I don't have a word for it, but everything matters. But perhaps this will actually calm the waters a little bit for Mauricio Pochettino, because there were already pieces in the French press saying that Pochettino was under pressure and that the people in Doha were not too happy about his choice, and that he had been told so, and people were wondering, well, is his place already endangered at PSG when he's in fact extended his contract to June 2023 just a couple of months ago. So it's made quite a few waves in the strange Messi-obsessed landscape of Ligue 1 at the moment.
Yeah, well, it seems Messi had an MRI this morning, which confirmed signs of bruising on the bone. So follow-up examination to be carried out in 48 hours. What Pochettino said was, in order to explain, on the sidelines, we observe all the players, everything that's happening during games. We saw Messi was checking his knee and made some gestures, and we saw that when he took a shot. He said of Messi's reaction, of course, all top players want to be on the pitch at all times. It's understandable. I'm calm about it. As for his reaction, I asked him how he was. He said he was okay. That was it. That was our exchange. And there was that moment where, now with his interpretation, you can see him, as Messi walks by him and pretty much dodges his hand, Messi looks back and it's clear Pochettino saying, "You okay?" And Messi's sort of in his very typical way, not giving much away. I guess the point is, so the rights and wrongs of this ultimately don't matter. But the fact is, we are talking about a substitution, and it makes global headlines. And even the parallel with Solskjaer and Ronaldo, it turns out Ronaldo, I didn't even catch this during the game, but Ronaldo stood up when there was a bad refereeing decision against young boys besides Solskjaer, and Rio Ferdinand goes on BT Sport afterwards and says, well, look, this shows he's undermining the manager, a bit like the Euro 2016 final, and Solskjaer just has to spend 2 or 3 days explaining that one away. And you stop and you think to yourself, managing Messi, managing Ronaldo, it is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous, and that's why their teams have got problems at times. And but in one way, you could see that as being a lightning rod for not asking the right questions, because anybody who saw that game between PSG and Lyon, and it was actually a cracking game, would come up with very different questions, as in PSG won, but PSG won through a very generous penalty award, to say the least. And to a goal, quite a good goal actually, scored by a substitute Mauro Icardi in added time. But the team that played all of the football on that evening, regardless of the possession stats or whatever, the team that played the football and which really caught the eye was not Paris Saint-Germain, it was Lyon. and the players who caught the eye were also Lyon players, which should be really the thing that preoccupies people who follow PSG and who are worried about their state at the moment. I mean, to be honest, it's a kind of worry that is very relative, because if you look at what they've done in the French league so far, 6-game play, 6 victories. They're not too badly there. Against the way against Club Brugge, who again were a team were superior, I think, in every compartment of the match to the Parisians. In a way, when you talk about Neymar and Mbappe, and now about Lionel Messi, you kind of move the conversation to a place that is both less comfortable and far more comfortable. Because yes, it's less comfortable. Obviously, it's the whole kind of FC Hollywood kind of what's the relationship between the players and Pochettino? Has he lost a player? What's the balance of power between all these big guys in the dressing room? But if you do that, you're not you're not putting the real questions to Pochettino and to PSG, which is the fact that his team just plays bad football, really bad football, and is completely unbalanced, despite having a squad which is perhaps in terms of the raw quality, if you look at each player individually, not at the ensemble, at each player individually, perhaps the strongest ever assembled by a French team in history. And they're not playing good football. And they looked really, really bothered against Lyon. The midfield wasn't there. There was no protection whatsoever. There were acres of space for the Lyon creators to exploit, which they did very well indeed. And you're thinking, well, against a team that is a little bit more dangerous in terms of the forward power than Lyon, surely they will pay the price for that lack of balance at some point. So when you talk about Messi, you don't talk about that.
No. And the shape, you can confirm, I saw from the Lyon game, it was Herrera and Gay as the two in front of the back four, and then
shape is a generous word to use. Yes.
Well, just for the listeners, it was supposedly those two in front of the back four, and then a three of Di Maria, Messi through the middle, Neymar on the left, and Mbappe up top. So I presume that's not the most hard-working team without the ball at the moment.
No, it's not. And strangely enough, actually, we saw Messi actually. I think he gave a free kick by tracking back, actually, a dangerous free kick where Neymar as well was doing what Neymar does, which is that he doesn't really cover his defenders or his midfield, but he reacts. Like he gets very angry if he loses the ball and if he sees that the team is not doing well. But it's all not Pochettino-esque at all. Mbappe that's not his main quality either. And yes, you have a huge problem, and we saw that again. I mean, the number of times where we saw suddenly Cacré, for example, within 20 yards of space in the PSG camp when the score was 1-0 or 1-0, and you thought, that's impossible. That shouldn't be happening. Well, it was happening because if you are that midfield, they didn't have Verratti, which is big miss, but to be honest, they have got plenty of other very, very fine midfielders. But when you're part of that midfield, if you see that your opponent is doing more or less what they want 50 yards away from goal, are you going to push and try to pressurize them and get the ball back? No, you're not going to do that, because you know that the guys up front are not going to do their job. So they won't be in the right positions. They won't do the necessary efforts. So what you could do is actually create yet more space between the lines. And all it takes then is a ball through those lines. And suddenly you've got your defenders in front of the attackers with absolutely no cover from the midfield. So you can't do that. And that's what's been happening. That was also happening against Club Brugge as well, who really should have won that game, as I believe Lyon could have won that game. So for Pochettino, it's a huge problem, because, to be honest, when we think of the Mauricio Pochettino we've seen, be it with Espanyol or Southampton, or of course Tottenham, we tend to think of teams which are extremely proactive, which are very energetic, which apply high pressure, are making things very difficult for our opponent. PSG is not doing that. PSG is making things difficult for the opponent when they've got the ball and they're running with the ball. Yes, of course. When you've got Neymar and Mbappe, when you've got Messi. Shouldn't forget that Messi, by the way, nearly scored the perfect free kick. I mean, he just hit the angle of the bar and the post, and he was not by any means the worst player in that PSG team. But there is this problem of unbalance. which is not a typical Pochettino problem, but which he has to solve with the players at his disposal. And you think, are you going to leave one of those guys on the bench? How will you justify it? People are waiting for the Magnificent Three to be there. But okay, that might have worked in the old days, when Real Madrid was playing with Puskás and Copa and Di Stefano and Rento, and that was okay because the defenses were not as well organized as they are now. Now they are organized, and you have a problem. You need to sacrifice a little bit of the sparkle, so to speak, to get some of the balance back. But to do that, you will have to leave one of those three players on the bench. And let's not forget Angel Di Maria, who has been one of the most consistent players for PSG, who is a wonderful player, especially in transitions, and who is also a player who is hardworking. Do you want to leave him out? Not necessarily. So it's a real conundrum, but Pochettino is not the first PSG manager to be faced with that one.
No, and I don't see an obvious solution either, I have to say, which is why this is all so interesting. And look, there is a rule. We spoke to Simon Cooper recently about his new book on Barcelona. There is a rule when you manage Messi, and it's very simple. You acquiesce to his every demand. And we got a glimpse of how he might react to not playing every minute. And it was interesting. I was just reading a piece in advance of talking to you, which was just charting. And there haven't been that many instances similar to substitutions or time off the pitch, because Messi's so damn good. Of course, he played every game, but whenever he's taken off, it's always been an issue, and he's always been difficult. So, for instance, just to jog memories, 2008, Barcelona are 4-0 up. Messi is taken off in the 81st minute by Pep Guardiola. Now, that was the last time he did that. He refused to train the next day. He was that unhappy with being taken off. 2015, he's been away on international duty. It's January. And by the way, this is the year they won the treble. And Enrique leaves him on the bench. It was a defeat to Sociedad. He missed training. He skipped the annual visit to the Children's Hospital. Enrique was booed the next game. Xavi had to intervene and sort the whole thing out. Enrique later described it as a period of tension. So if you're Pochettino and you're playing in a big Champions League game, and in your heart of hearts you feel, even though it's, counterintuitive for any of us to say it, but that, Mbappe, I need his pace, I want him starting. Neymar, I want him starting. I feel it's right to bring Messi off the bench with 20 minutes to go. Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
And good luck if you do the same with Neymar or Mbappe. Mbappe perhaps might be the disposable asset. I say might be. I'm literally just throwing hypothesis at you, because Mbappe, the relationship with the Parisian crowd is different. Because of what happened and the fact that people are well aware of the fact that had there been some kind of agreement between Real Madrid and PSG, he would be wearing a white shirt right now. So it might be easier to do that. But yes, when it comes to Messi, but what can you say against that? I mean, it's like the arguments that people have about how big their name is on the poster of a film. I'm going to take an example in cinema related to an actor who left us not very long ago, Jean-Paul Belmondo. Jean-Paul Belmondo and Alain Delon, who were very, very close friends, and of course the two giants of the French screen for most of the 60s, 70s, and even the 80s. Jean-Paul Belmondo and Alain Delon didn't speak to each other for years. The reason for it was because in a film that they did together, Borsalino, Alain Delon's name appeared twice on the poster, whereas Belmondo was only there once, and Delon was a producer. So that gives you an idea, I think, the kind of behavior that you can expect from this kind of people. I think it's funny more than anything else, and I think we shouldn't give it any importance whatsoever, because you can be absolutely sure that the next time, even if Messi is left on the bench, the next time he's going to be on the pitch, even if he skips a training session. He will be doing his absolute darndest to be the best on the pitch, because there's one thing he's not that kind of player. He's not a selfish player who is going to. The real Messi is the one you see on the field of play. He's one of the most honest players that I think we've ever seen at this kind of level. Never complains, always carries on. If there's a ball to be given rather than shoot, and it's the best choice to make, unlike some others, he will pass the ball. So in a way, we're but talking as we do now, we're giving importance to something which really shouldn't have any. He's not the first player to have had a bad reaction to being substituted or forgotten, and he might have skipped a training session. I don't think you'll find a single example of Messi skipping a game ever.
And to be honest, the point of this piece, just in case there's any misunderstanding out there, is not that we think it's a big deal that Messi was in a huff when he was substituted. It's actually just so striking, like the extent of the headlines, like that this is global news, and that Pochettino's having to explain himself in a press conference, the same way Solskjaer had to explain himself for taking off 36-year-old when they're down to 10 men, and he took him off in like the 76th minute. It's that these two managers now, and it's amazing to watch the parallels, have to explain their every decision when it comes to these players, and it will be scrutinised beyond belief. And I don't know, it's just going to be fascinating to see how it plays out.
I can't wait. It's a terrible thing to say. I can't wait for this age to be over. And I think it will be over when Messi and Ronaldo hang their boots, because I can't see anybody who is close to what they have been or what they are, or the kind of status they have in terms of social media and so forth, and how people become the whole thing about who's the greatest of the two, all this nonsense really. And in a way they're the victims of that too, because I think in a way it prevents us from actually realizing how great they have been and still are in some ways. And because we are focusing on these completely inconsequential stories. They're inconsequential, but I say that on the other hand, they're fascinating.
No, they're fascinating.
Because and they will have an impact on the way Pochettino is driving this PSG team forward, because there's going to be an impact, obviously.
Well, that's the question. And I guess it's fascinating because you're watching these greats with so much status and unbelievable amounts of credit in the bank, but they're raging against the dying of the light, and they're not going to be the first to admit it. And it's a difficult thing to have to nudge up beside them and say, look, I kind of think you're finished when it comes to this particular type of game I want to play this evening or whatever. So, look, this is a ridiculous question on the face of it to ask about Messi, obviously. But does he make, when it comes to, I'm not talking about, when they're beating Strasbourg 4-2 at home and Clermont 4-0 and, they're 6 for 6 in Ligue 1. When they get to knockout stages of the Champions League, does Messi with Neymar and Mbappe, does he make PSG more vulnerable or a better side than they were last year?
Both. And that's the problem. Of course, they're better because you have got a man who is one, if not the greatest player of all time, who is far from finished, and stroke of genius, he can change the games, and so can Neymar, and so can Mbappe. But he makes them worse because there is simply no balance. And look at the teams which have won the Champions League in recent history. Chelsea, Bayern. Yes, they've got some very fine players indeed, and some great players actually, in fact. But this is not the reason why they've won. This is not the reason why they've been so dominant. Look, even at Liverpool, they've got some magnificent players. I don't think Jurgen Klopp, when he wants to leave Salah out, or Mane out, or Firmino out, or Jota out, yes, there will be a few frowns and whatever, and people might talk about it for 15 seconds, but everybody will forget about it very quickly. It is a PSG problem. It is a problem that you have with teams of Galacticos. It's the problem that Real Madrid had. Think of the 2005-06 season, when they had, my goodness, they had everybody. They had Ronaldo, the other one, the Fenomeno. They had Beckham, they had Duty, they had Raul. They had absolutely everybody who was anybody. And they were beaten 1-0 by Arsenal Football Club at the Bernabeu. And people ask themselves questions. Well, the answer to that was very simple. Your team is totally unbalanced, my dear Florentino Perez. It cannot work. It doesn't work like that. And it takes a very special manager, like for example, when Zidane did it, when you had Cristiano, Gareth Bale, and Benzema, and he managed to find some kind of balance there. But he was Zinedine Zidane, and you can do that if you're Zinedine Zidane. And Pochettino is not Zinedine Zidane.
No. And I mean, what was it Zidane said when they sold Makelele? We have a Ferrari, we just sold the engine. So
yes,
players understand as well, which is the interesting thing. Like, players know, and the PSG players will know that the collective maybe is more vulnerable. What of what of Neymar? Because I saw a couple of weeks back, and hey, look, we've all had a big meal on our holidays and been seeing a photograph we don't love. I saw him on holidays and he'd put on a few kilos, I think, and he was laughing off weight and fitness concerns. What mood has he returned in this season, Philippe?
Listen, Neymar is Neymar is Neymar. He will never change, and he will always do this kind of thing. I think the mood is not particularly bad. I think he was genuinely delighted to see Lionel Messi coming to PSG. He's such a frustrating player. I don't know what to say anything anymore, because to be honest, sometimes he gets a bad rap. You know, people say that he's not trying, and that's completely untrue. If you watch PSG week in, week out, you realize that Neymar is actually one of the players. Very often, he's the player who will react when something don't go right. He's the one who will rebel against that. He will not down tools or anything like that. He might do some very silly things. I mean, commit some silly fouls. He might dribble too much. He might not pass the ball when he should pass the ball, and so on. But he's not a player who becomes disinterested in what's happening around him. He cares an awful lot. And, you know, regardless of all the shenanigans, he cares an awful lot. So all I've heard about Neymar this season at PSG is that he actually approached the season in a really positive frame of mind, and he was delighted to be reunited with his friend from Barcelona. You know, they've only played 7 games so far this season. So let's see what it's like, you know, in a month, 2 months' time, when the dust has settled a little bit. But it's true that with PSG, everything is a drama, everything is a soap opera, everything is a telenovela, whatever you want to call it. And it will carry on for our pleasure and sometime our despair at the state of world football. But we have to admit, all of us, that it is actually quite fun to watch.
Philippe, be under no illusion. When they signed Messi, we upgraded you to one of our speed dial numbers. We thought this is just going to be...
Goodness.
And a last one before you go. Mbappe, 4 goals and 3 assists in his 6 games.
Yes.
Obviously, the strong suspicion is that he's just counting down the clock and seeing out his contract. Is it your understanding, have PSG surrendered all hope of enticing him to sign a new deal, or where are they?
As it is right now, I think people are more or less... accepting of the fact that he will not wear the PSG shirt next season. And I think some people, including myself, were a little bit surprised that it didn't happen. But maybe there's the whole financial context, there's the pandemic and so forth. But I would be very, very surprised if he were in a PSG shirt next season. And I would be very surprised if it's not an opinion that wasn't shared by the people at the head of the club, the Parisian club, that is.
Okay, very good. Great to have you on. Thanks so much. Philippe Auclair, pleasure.
Thank you.
Football on Off the Ball.